What's up with it? You watching the Big Bomber TV? And yeah, we about to check out this video from the YouTube channel Swamp Shorts. And the title is The Murder Case That Shattered Cassidy's Rap Career. Yeah, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. Cassidy was a fool with them bars back in the days, man. For real, though. He definitely was like the king of battle rap. But yeah, it seemed like Cassidy definitely was unstoppable on the mic until he went down, man. You know what I'm saying? That kind of like messed up his career a little bit, man. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't gonna lie, man. When it come down to battle rap and the bars and stuff, Cassidy definitely a legend, man. For real, though. But yeah, man, I haven't checked out the video. Don't completely know what they talking about, but let's check it out and see what they talking about.
The story begins in the trenches of North Philadelphia, specifically 75th Avenue. This is where a man named Barry Reese, also known as Cassidy, was born and raised. Cassidy grew up extremely rough and used rapping as his way to make it out of the hood. In the early 2000s, he performed at rap battles all over the East Coast until he was noticed by a young producer named Swiss Beats. Swiss saw potential in Cassidy and decided to sign him to a 3-album deal in 2002. Right off the bat, his career was a success with hit songs like Hotel and Get No Better. He was already performing at award shows and his debut album went gold in 2004. Cassidy was the man, but behind closed doors was living a street life in North Philadelphia. In a place like North Philly, a famous rapper could not operate alone. So in order to protect himself, Cassidy always rolled with a young goon that he grew up with. This would be one of his childhood best friends named Abdul West. Abdul was raised in a good 2-parent home that ate together, prayed together 5 times a day, and always made sure his homework was done. Because of this, Abdul was a good student and actually graduated high school at 16 with a trade in plumbing. Despite being on a good path, Abdul had a strange love for the streets that always caught his attention. Although home life was good, North Philly was always hectic and Abdul wanted to be a part of it. So when his homie Cassidy's career blew up, he volunteered to be his street enforcer. So in the streets of Philly, Cassidy was at the helm and by his side was Abdul, his brother Leek Moss, and another friend named Pretty Flock. Together, they were the guys in Philly. They had all the money, and of course, they had all of the girls as well. But with this kind of fame came a whole lot of envy. Many people they grew up with were jealous and were looking for any reason to try them. And that takes us to April 15th, 2005. It's a huge day for Cassidy as he's releasing his highly anticipated song, I'm a Hustler. So of course he's in great spirits until he receives an alarming phone call from Abdul. Abdul tells him that Pretty Flock was jumped by a group of guys they grew up with. The story goes that they caught him out doing errands and they jumped him for absolutely zero reason. So directly after, Flock called Abdul and told him to pull up ASAP. From there, Abdul hopped in his car and called Cassidy to let him know that he might need to bail him out of jail. So Abdul drove to Pretty Flock, picked him up, and they went around looking for the group of guys. The story goes that Abdul caught one of the guys outside of Rite Aid and put his paws on him. From all accounts, Abdul handled him like Tyron Woodley or John Jones. And just like that, there was a potential beef stewing in the streets of Philly. But the guys who started this quickly came to a realization. Do we really want to beef with Abdul West? Shh, probably not. So in order to prevent a beef, one of the guys calls Abdul and sees if they can make peace. At 6 p.m., a man named Desmond Hawkins calls Abdul's phone. He apologizes for what happened to Pretty Flock and he asks him if they can be cool. Abdul tells him to swing by Cassidy's house at 9 p.m. so they can talk it out. Desmond agrees and that's the plans for the night. So you're probably thinking, wow, Abdul is so mature and level-headed, but you'll see. Abdul drives to his house, grabs a blower, and heads over to Cassidy's. When he arrives, he gives him a rundown of the situation, and Cassidy thinks it's a good idea. But then Abdul tells him that he stashed a blower in the bushes next to his house, and that makes him skeptical. If they're coming over to make peace, why are you putting a blower in the bushes? It doesn't make any sense. But Abdul isn't the kind of guy you question, so Cassidy just leaves it alone. 9:30 p.m. Desmond Hawkins and his 2 friends arrive at Cassidy's house looking to make peace. When they arrive, Desmond honks his horn and Abdul walks outside. He walks up to Desmond's driver's side window and they begin having a conversation. Somehow it turns into an argument and Abdul walks over to the bushes. From there, he grabs his piece and allegedly makes a terrible decision.
Man. Yeah, man, that was a terrible decision. And yeah, man, why would you do that in front of the house y'all was just hanging in? I ain't gonna lie, if it was like some necessary stuff and the dude had pulled something out and you had to do what you had to do, that's one thing. But like to just pop somebody in front of the house, though, you definitely making yourself number one suspect.
Abdul and Cassidy instantly vacate the area and decide to go out of town. Sadly, Desmond didn't deserve this in a million years, but this was Philadelphia's introduction to Abdul West. Abdul ruined a potentially great day for Cassidy as I'm a Hustler was major on the charts. So at the height of his
Damn,
career, Cassidy was paranoid about the event that happened right outside of his house.
I
He knew
bet.
that even Philadelphia police would eventually figure it out and that it was a matter of time. That time would come, June 17th, 2005. Philadelphia police announced that Cassidy and Abdul West are both wanted for the passing of Desmond Hawkins. This shocked the hip-hop world as Cassidy was becoming a major artist. He smartly turned himself in the same day and instantly his life came crashing down. The superstar rapper at the height of his career was now facing 25 to life. While on the other hand, Abdul would go on the run but would eventually be found 2 weeks later in Ohio. Now we talk
Man.
about the court cases, which are actually pretty interesting. This is because Cassidy and Abdul took two completely different routes on fighting them. The men in the car with Desmond told police that they didn't see Cassidy but instead saw Abdul do it. And the only reason Cassidy was arrested is because it happened in front of his house, so police thought that he called the shot. The prosecutors had a weak case against Cassidy, so he could have easily taken it to trial and beaten it in the end. However, trials can take years and Cassidy was eager to get back to his career, so he ended up pleading to involuntary manslaughter and taking an 11-month sentence.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, man. I hate to say this though, but man, y'all supposed to leave witnesses when you do something crazy like that, man. For real though. So I guess the person had a passenger with him or something, man. Don't lie, man. You do something like that, you really don't supposed to leave no witnesses. Yeah, man. I'm just saying, man, for real.
How this qualifies as involuntary manslaughter is beyond me, but he figured that it was his best option. This way, his music career was guaranteed to return in under a year. On the other hand, Abdul decided to take his case to trial and test his luck. This was extremely risky, especially as there was two eyewitnesses, but Abdul knew something that the rest of the world didn't, and that would be that the two eyewitnesses would not testify in his trial. That's how feared he was in the streets. No one would dare testify against him in court. And because of this, he was able to beat his trial in 2007 and be released with 0 charges. So now Cassidy was a convicted felon and Abdul had no record. Of course, this isn't fair, but it also goes to show that you need to be careful who you hang around. It can ruin your career or possibly even end your life.
I always say that.
Cassidy was lucky that it was only a year, but it still had some serious consequences. When Cassidy got home in 2006, his buzz just simply wasn't what it used to be. However, he still had a decent following and one album left with Swiss Beats. So on November 6, 2007, his final album under Swiss was released and it didn't do quite as well as expected. Because of this, he and Swiss went their separate ways and he started his own label called the Larceny Family in 2008. He funded it himself and of course made himself the main artist. But if you have a label, you probably need more than just yourself. Well, coincidentally, the start of Larceny Family was the same time that Ab came home. So Cassidy convinced him to become a rapper and to sign to his label. He promised him that he'd make him a star and that together they'd get to the millions. So Abdul agreed and signed on the dotted lines. His rap name would be AR Ab and the Larceny Family was off to the races. Or not. Cassidy underestimated the cost of starting a label and jump-starting a new career. And as a result, he prioritized his own career and AR Ab was kicked to the curb. During this process, Ab began getting frustrated and finally decided to go his separate ways. He felt like Cassidy got his hopes up for no reason and was wasting his time. Because of this, their relationship went sour and the former best friends were now at odds. Beef with Abdul was the last thing that Cassidy needed in his life. But thankfully, by this time, he had already moved out of Philly. He was living in New York, focused on getting his career back to the mainstream stage. On the other hand, Ab now had a major chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove to Cassidy that he could make it himself. He now understood that running a career took a lot of money, and that became his main focus. He used to be the bully tough guy, but now he was only focused on stacking money and hustling. But he didn't have any money to start with, so he began by finessing and robbing plugs, a very dangerous game in Philly. This would eventually catch up to him, but in the meantime, this is how he got his start. He flipped his work in the streets over and over until he was dealing with some serious pain, and from there he wanted to turn it into a whole operation.
Yeah, man, that's crazy right there, man. Yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, I ain't know he popped up to people and left a few people in the car, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, he definitely left witnesses. Yeah, man, he ended up beating it. So man, I guess he won with that situation. He went online self-snitching, you know what I'm saying? For real though. But yeah, ultimately though, man, I think his parents raised him good and set him up to be ready for life. Like if he would have took that plumbing stuff serious, probably would have passed up a lot of dudes in the streets, man. For real though. Cause clean money and dirty money, man, is a big difference, man. For real though. You can have hella dirty money, but it's only so much you can do with it. You know what I'm saying? You gotta put stuff in other people's names and stuff like that. And then when you go to jail, they done sold everything. You know what I'm saying? For real though. They be like, oh, they came and told your car. You know what I'm saying? A long time ago. Like, damn. Ain't even say nothing about it, you know what I'm saying? All the time, they didn't really sold that motherfucker or something, though, you feel me? So, yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, man, I think AR App kind of failed his parents a little bit, you know what I'm saying? For real, though. I really think people underestimate a job sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Or a career or something like that, you know what I mean? A lot of people just try to come up fast, man. But yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to the Big Bomber TV. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Until next time. All right.